Shalom Chavarim. This is Matthew chapter 27. And when it was morning, the chief priests and the elders of the people all took counsel against Yeshua so they might put him to death. And they bound him and took him and delivered him to Pilatus the governor. Then Yehuda, the traitor, when he saw that Yeshua was convicted, he repented and went and returned those 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and to the elders. And he said, I have sinned because I have betrayed innocent blood. But they said to him, what is that to us? That is your problem. And he threw the silver into the temple and departed and went and hanged himself. Now the chief priests picked up the silver and said, it is not lawful to put it in the house of offerings because the price of it is blood. And they took counsel and bought a field of a potter with it as a cemetery for strangers. To this day, that field is called the field of blood because of this. Then the thing was fulfilled, which was spoken of by the prophet, who said, I took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the precious one, which was agreed upon by those sons of Israel, and I gave them for the field of a potter, as Master Yahweh commanded me. The Greeks incorrectly identify the prophetical quote as coming from Jeremiah. The reality, though, is the right source is in fact Zechariah 11:12-13. I told them, if you think it best to give me my pay, but if not, keep it. So they paid me 30 pieces of silver. And Yahweh said to me, throw it to the potter, the handsome price at which they priced me. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of Yahweh to the potter. The Greek redactor, instead, is probably thinking of Jeremiah 19:11, which comes close to evoking similar themes, but is not a precise match as the Zechariah quote is, saying instead, this is what Yahweh Almighty says, I will smash this nation and this city just as this potter's jar is smashed and cannot be repaired. They will bury the dead in Topeth until there is no more room. Only the Peshitta traditions effectively deal with the matter by not naming the prophet at all, but the Aramaic is clear that a single man is intended. And verse 10, the footnote is Zechariah 11:11 and 12. This is the book of Zechariah, and I would like to read verses 1-3. In month the 8th, in the year 2nd of Darius, came the word of Yahweh to Zechariah, son of Berechiah, son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, has been angry Yahweh with your fathers, Avotechem, very. Therefore say to them, thus says Yahweh of hosts, return to me, says Yahweh of hosts, and I will return to you, says Yahweh of hosts. Verse 11, so they answered the Malach of Yahweh who stood among the myrtle trees and said, we have walked to and fro throughout the earth, and behold, all the earth is resting and quietly. And answered the Malach of Yahweh and said, Yahweh of hosts, how long you not will have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Judah against which you were angry? This is 70 years. And answered Yahweh, the angel who talked to me with words good, words comforting. Zechariah 11 from verse 10, and I took my staff, beauty, and cut in two it, that I might break the covenant which I had made with all the peoples, So it was broken on day that thus knew, so the poor of the flock who were watching me, that the word of Yahweh it was. And I said to them, if it is agreeable to you, give me my wages, and if not, refrain. So they weighed out for my wages 30 pieces of silver. And said Yahweh to me, throw it to the potter, magnificence price that they set on me of them. So I took 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house for Yahweh for the potter. While we're in Zechariah, I would like to look at chapter 3. And showed me Joshua the priest high standing before the Malach of Yahweh, and Shatan standing at his right hand to oppose him. And said Yahweh to Shatan, rebuke Yahweh, you Shatan, and rebuke Yahweh, you who have chosen Jerusalem. Is not this a firebrand plucked from the fire? Now Joshua was clothed with garments filthy and was standing before Hamalach. And he answered and spoke to those who stood before him, saying, take away the garments filthy from him. And he said to him, see, I have removed from you your iniquity, and I will clothe you with rich robes. And I said, let a turban clean on his head. So they put a turban clean on his head, and they put on him the clothes, and the Malach of Yahweh stood by and admonished the angel of Yahweh, Joshua, saying, thus says Yahweh of hosts, if in my ways you will walk, and if my command you will keep, and also you shall judge my house, and likewise have charge of my courts, and I will give you places to walk, among who stand here these. Hear now, Joshua the priest high, you and your companions who sit before you. For men a wondrous sign they are, for behold, I am bringing forth my servant Branch. For behold, the stone that I have laid before Joshua, upon one stone are 7 eyes. Behold, I will engrave its inscription, says Yahweh of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of the land in that day. 1. In day that, says Yahweh of hosts, will invite everyone his neighbor under his vine and under his fig tree. Matthew 27, verse 11. Now Yeshua stood before the governor, and the governor asked him and said to him, are you king of the Yehudians? Yeshua said to him, you have said it. And while the chief priests and elders were accusing him, he did not return an answer. Then Pilatus said to him, do you not hear how much they testify against you? And he did not give an answer to him, not even with one word. And he greatly marveled at this. Now at every feast it was the governor's custom to free one prisoner to the people, whomever they were desiring. Now they had imprisoned a well-known prisoner who was called Barabbas. And when they were gathered, Pilatus said to them, whom do you desire to be freed to you, Barabbas or Yeshua, who is called the Mashiach? For Pilatus was realizing that they had delivered him because of envy. Now, while the governor was sitting on his judgment seat, his wife sent to him and said to him, have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered greatly in my dream today because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas to destroy Yeshua. And the governor answered and said to them, whom do you desire to be freed to you from these two? And they said, Barabbas. And Pilatus said to them, and Yeshua, who is called the Mashiach, what should I do to him? They all said, let him be put to death on the stake. The governor said to them, what evil indeed has he done? But all the more they cried out and said, let him be put to death on the stake. And Pilatus, when he saw that nothing helped, but instead the clamor was increasing, he took water and washed his hands before the crowd and said, I am innocent of the blood of this righteous man. You do as you please. And answered all the people and said, let his blood be upon us and upon our children. Exodus 20, verse 5 is being referenced here, which indicates that Yahweh visits sins up to the 4th generation. Some of the Sanhedrin were concerned that Yeshua was innocent. They concluded that if he was innocent, a worst case scenario would bring a curse on them lasting 4 generations. However, if Yeshua was guilty and if the Romans became angry, they feared Israel would be wiped off the face of the earth. Hence, not only 4 generations, but all future generations would be affected. This idea was also stated by the high priest in John 11:48. This grossly misunderstood or twisted verse was fashioned into a blood curse by Christians against the Jewish people. See 18 New Testament Misconceptions, number 17, his blood be upon us and our children, in appendix. Verse 26, then he released Barabbas to them and scourged Yeshua with whips and delivered him to be put to death on the stake. Then the soldiers of the governor took Yeshua to the praetorium and assembled against him all of the company of soldiers. The praetorium was located on the northwest corner of the temple inside the Antonia fortress. It had a maximum capacity of 200 people. A handful of religious fanatics used crowd psychology against Yeshua to unfairly influence the outcome, and the souls in attendance certainly did not represent the entire Jewish race. Of the 200 attendees, the greatest number were most likely soldiers who were protecting Rome's interest in silencing Yeshua. Yeshua's followers wanted to crown him as their king. This also brought much consternation to the elite of the Roman hierarchy. It was not the Jews who put Yeshua to death, but a handful of scribes and elders with the consent of their officiating chief rabbi and high priest, who were also political puppets of Rome and who feared for their own positions of power. History tells us that the common people favored Yeshua, and many priests also became followers of Yeshua. See Acts 6:7. So look at the parallels of this to today, where power corrupts, but the common people have the faith. And the concept of powerful people trying to silence dissent, that is what we're seeing with censorship these days. Verse 28, and they stripped him and clothed him with a robe of purple, and they wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed down upon their knees before him, and they were mocking at him and saying, Peace, King of the Yehudians. And they spat in his face and took the reed and were striking him upon the head. And when they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put on his own clothes and led him away to be put to death on the stake. And while they were going out, they found a man of Quinra, whose name was Shimon. They compelled this man that he might carry his stake. And they came to the place which is called Golgotha, which is interpreted the skull. And they gave to him vinegar that was mixed with gall to drink. And he tasted it, and he did not desire to drink it. And when they had nailed him to the stake, they divided his clothes by casting lots. And they were sitting, watching him there. and they placed over his head the reason for his death in writing. This is Yeshua, the King of the Yehudians. Matthew 27, verse 38. And there were put on execution stakes with him 2 bandits, one on his right and one on his left. And those who were passing by were blaspheming, were against him, and were nodding their heads. Psalm 22, verse 7. All those who see me ridicule me. They shoot out the lip. They shake, saying, the head. He trusted in Yahweh. Let him rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Verse 40, and they were saying, O you who would tear down the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, deliver yourself if you are the son of Elohim, and come down from the stake. Now, this is a parallel to when Yeshua was in the desert being tempted by Hashatan. And Hashatan dared him to fall. 41. Likewise, the chief priests were also mocking together with the scribes, the elders, and the Pharisees. And they were saying, he saved others, but he is not able to save himself. If he is the king of Israel, let him come down now from the stake so that we may believe in him. They were stuck on the physical realm. Verse 43. He put his trust in Elohim. Let him save him now if he is pleased with him. For he said that I am the son of Elohim. Verse 9. But you are he who took me out of the womb. You made me trust on breasts of my mother. Verse 44. Likewise, even those bandits who were nailed to the stake with him were reproaching him. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Yeshua cried out with a loud voice and said, my El, lemana sabachthani. Why have you spared me? Footnote 268. The Hebrew azbatani is derived from the Hebrew azab, Strong's number 5800, which has been translated as loosen, relinquish, permit, release, set free, forsake, abandon, leave behind, omit, and relax. It cannot mean forsaken as we think of the word, because it is not possible that Yahweh forsake himself. Father Yahweh does not separate himself from Mashiach, his son, look away from him and pour out his wrath on his son. Many Bibles read forsaken, from which came a false teaching that the Father left Yeshua destitute, Marcionite thinking. Also, Yeshua was not necessarily quoting Psalm 22, although the imagery of the psalm is certainly intended by Matthew. Greek is transliterated Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, but Peshitta and Psalm 22 read Eli, Eli, lama azbatani. Isaiah 53:4 indicates that we reckoned him smitten of Elohim, but it is not Yahweh who tortured his own son, but men motivated by religious tradition. Psalm 22 references those who spurned Yeshua for his faith in Yahweh and called him a worm, detested. But Father Yahweh does not forsake the righteous, nor does he at any time forsake his own son. See Psalm 9:9 and 10, 37:25, 71:11, Isaiah 49:14 through 16. Yeshua says, Eli, my El. He is in great physical pain after being brutally tortured. Those around him were confused about whether he was saying Eliah or Eliyahu. If Hebrew eyewitnesses were not sure of what he was saying, it shouldn't be a surprise that Greek transliteration was also wrong. putting lama sabachthani rather than lemana sabachthani. Perhaps the reason Yeshua says, "Why are you sparing me?" is because he has proven his commitment by laying down his life and has already endured about 6 hours of the execution. So it is not a matter of being forsaken, but that he literally means, "Father, I'm ready. Why can't we finish this?" In a matter of moments from saying this, he dies, which fully supports this interpretation. See appendix, my L. 47. And some of those men who were standing there when they heard it were saying, "This man calls to Eliyahu," or Elijah. And immediately one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and was offering a drink to him. 48. And immediately one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and was offering a drink to him. Psalm 69, 21 through 22. And they gave me for my food gall, and for my thirst they gave me to drink vinegar. Let become their table before them a snare, and their well-being a trap. Verse 49, but the rest were saying, "Let him be. Let us see if Eliyahu comes to save him." Then again, Yeshua cried out with a loud voice and gave up his spirit. Footnote 270, see Luke 23:46 for his final words. Verse 51, and immediately the curtains at the door of the temple were torn in two from the top to the bottom, and the earth was shaken, and the rocks were split, and the tombs were opened, and many bodies of the set-apart believers who were asleep arose. Footnote 271, being set apart unto Yahweh means to be led by the Ruach HaKodesh, to keep the commandments of Yahweh. Belief in itself does not make one set apart. Even the demons believe in Yahweh and his Mashiach. From James 2:19. Verse 53, and went out, and after his resurrection, they entered into the set-apart city and were seen by many. And the centurion and those with him who were watching Yeshua, when they saw the earthquake and those things that had occurred, they were very afraid and said, "Truly, this was the Son of Elohim." And there were also many women there who were looking from afar, those who had come after Yeshua from Galilee and had ministered to him. One of them was Maryam of Magdala, and Maryam, the mother of Yaakov and of Yosef, and the mother of the sons of Zadi. Verse 57, now when it became evening, a rich man from Ramtha, whose name was Yosef, who also was taught by Yeshua. This man drew near to Pilatus and asked for the body of Yeshua. And Pilatus commanded that the body be given to him. And Yosef took the body and wrapped it in a shroud of fine linen, and he laid it in his new tomb, which was hewn in rock. And they rolled a large boulder, and they placed it upon the entrance of the tomb, and they departed. The first of two evenings that marked how ancient Hebrews observed the transition from day into night, Ramsha, like the Hebrew Erev, can refer to either the late afternoon, as it does here, or sunset. The former is indicated here because 2762 states that the sunset happened later, from which the Jewish day officially began as per Genesis 1:5. It can be read, and when the sun was darkened, referring to the early Erev between the 6th and 9th hours, as also defined in Jeremiah 6:4 and Amos 8:9 through 10. See divisions of the day in appendix. Verse 61, And there were Maryam of Magdala and the other Maryam who were sitting opposite the tomb. And on the next day, which was after the sunset, the chief priests and the Pharisees were gathered with Pilatus. Footnote 273, this is after sunset and not after the preparation. The day Yeshua crucified is Thursday, the 15th of Abib, and a high Shabbat. So after sunset means the period between Thursday sunset and before Friday at sunset. The word erubata is not used for preparation in Aramaic. In fact, the entire phrase day of preparation is lacking in the whole Aramaic New Testament. Please see Ephesians 6:15, where toyabe is used in the phrase with the preparation for the good news of peace. If it were the day of preparation, the phrase would be yomata de toyaba, which is not in the text. Also see the same word in Luke 22:8 with the phrase zelo tayeba lan petzcha, literally, go prepare for us the Pesach. Verse 63, and they were saying to him, our master, we have remembered that the deceiver would say while he was alive that after 3 days I will arise. Command therefore that they guard the grave until the third day, or else his disciples come steal him in the night and say to the people that he has risen from the dead. And the last deception should become worse than the first. Pilatus said to them, you have the guards, go and take precautions as you know. And they departed and took precautions by the grave and set a seal upon that stone together with the guards. Chapter 28. Now in the closing evening of the Shabbat, as the first of the week was dawning, came Maryam of Magdala and the other Maryam that they might see the grave. And behold, a great earthquake occurred, for a messenger of Master Yahweh descended from heaven and came and rolled away the boulder from the entrance, and he was sitting upon it. But note 274, Aramaic literally reads Baramsha din Bishabbata, or in the evening of the Shabbat. What is true for dawning is also true of setting, in the sense of conclusion, as is meant here. This agrees with the Greek version, Aramaic information in Matthew, and with other writers in the New Testament. Murdoch and Etheridge also confirmed this idiomatic reading in their translations. Verse 3, and his appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white like snow. And from the fear of him, those who were watching trembled, and they became like the dead. But the messenger answered and said to the women, do not fear, for I know that Yeshua, who was executed on the stake, you seek. He is not here, for he has risen, and as he said, come, see the place in which he was laid. Now go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he goes before you to Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you. And they departed quickly from the grave with fear and with great joy, and were running that they might tell his disciples. And behold, Yeshua met up with them and said to them, peace to you. And they drew near and grabbed his feet and worshipped him. Then Yeshua said to them, do not fear, rather go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me. Now, when they had departed, some men came from those soldiers to the city and told the chief priests everything that happened. And they were assembled with the elders, and they took counsel, and they gave not a small amount of money to the soldiers. And they said to them, say that his disciples came and stole him in the middle of the night while we were sleeping. And if this is heard before the governor, and we will persuade him, we will not to make trouble for you. And when they took the money, they did as they had instructed them. And this word has gone out among the Yahudians to this day. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Yeshua had arranged for them to meet. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some of them were doubting. And Yeshua drew near and spoke with them and said to them, all authority is given me in heaven and on earth. And as my Father has sent me, I send you. Go therefore, make disciples of all the nations and immerse them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Ruach HaKodesh, and teach them to keep all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you all the days until the end of the world. Amen. Footnote 276. Aramaic has names singular, which does not support that the traditional Trinity theology. Ruach HaKodesh is a title for Yahweh. See Isaiah 63, 1 through 11, Psalm 51, 1 through 11. The Son has his Father's name within him, and the Father keeps his people in his name. John 17, 11. As a result, imagine 3 branches of the same tree rather than 3 separate trees. Each branch is united by the name, title of the one divine personality that is Yahweh Elohim. This linkage is established in Shemot, Exodus 23, 20 through 22, where a messenger, unlike any other angel, can forgive sin because Yahweh says, for my name is in him. All other angels have El in their name, but Yeshua's name is above the angels. Hence, Yahweh is in Yeshua's name. See Matthew 1:21, Hebrews 1 through 5. Nazareans have from the very beginning taught salvation in the name of Yahweh. See Immerser in Appendix. And for end of the world, 277, or end of the age, as Aramaic Alma means both. The exact meanings apply to the Greek word aeon used here, making this one of the few times where an original Aramaic word is perfectly matched with the Greek. Thank you all for studying the book of Matthew and the Aramaic English New Testament with me. I'm not sure where the Ruach HaKodesh is leading me next. These are difficult times. May we be able to draw upon the word as we need it in the challenges we are facing. Thank you.